Good morning. Okay, so we've got the Department of Government Efficiency, the DOGE, which it's been going for a month now. Thought I'd just go back and semi-review of it, and I say semi because I admit we don't have all the facts. It's potentially, everyone says it's political. It's potentially that it is political. And as a political thing, people don't give all the information on it. But that can be said both ways. Because some of the criticisms I've heard of it are just the same. It's, well, it's wrong because of, and then they give a poorly researched argument. So I'm going to give why I support the DOGE currently, because I admit it can get out of hand, but it hasn't yet, in my opinion. And so I'm just going to discuss this a little. So my biggest criticism about the DOGE so far is the name. So DOGE, I think I'm pronouncing that right. I'm not sure. I've never seen it, never heard it said. I've back the Italian city states, primarily Venice, from what I've heard. They had a guy, the Doge, and it was basically just sort of a senior official, and he had power to do stuff. And so that sounds a bit ominous, but more to the point, it's not even that. It's the fact just that they called it the DOGE. And it sounds like they're trying to name it after this old Italian official. And I just hate it when people do that. Anything, at work, we had all our corporate things, and they spent more time trying to come up with a clever name for it that spells something out than they did actually on the program they were working on at times. So, like I said, it sounds like they named it the Department of Government Efficiency just so they could call it the DOGE or Doge. And it sounds more like they're trying to be clever with the name than anything else. And I'm against that. Just give it a simple name, Now, like I said, that's my biggest argument against it so far. Down the road, something bad might happen. It could be tyranny, but I don't think it is currently. And actually, I think everyone who's claiming that it's going to be tyrannies are actually trying to defend tyrants, in my opinion. I'll get to that later. So anyway, turned 18, started paying taxes. I paid them before. Actually, my dad did the paperwork, so I started paying my own taxes, or doing my own paperwork. And, it became very apparent to me that, I could potentially be audited. For any mistake I make, I could be audited for. And that just brought up in my mind, well, if I can be audited, why can't the government be audited? Why can't the IRS be audited? They should be. I mean, they supposedly work for us. So, got a friend. There actually is an office which is supposed to audit other government offices. Have a friend who used to work for them. He started looking for a new job because he wasn't able to do it. Not that he was incompetent. It's just that no one cooperated with him. He would schedule and they would refuse to cooperate. So yes, we were doing audits in the past. They weren't efficient. They weren't. Let's say we were supposed to be doing audits in the past. We weren't able to because people weren't cooperating. And you don't have security clearance. This guy actually had like the second highest security clearance possible because he had to do these audits, so they made him go through the security checks. Often he had security clearance higher than the person telling him he didn't have security clearance to do his audit. And he would bring his security clearance paperwork and say, "Look, I have the security clearance," and they would still refuse it. So I know for a fact, based on this guy's telling me that audits, are the existing auditing branch of the government wasn't working. Oh, but the president doesn't have. Yes, the president does have the authority to do this. In fact, he did this through executive order. Yes, precisely. So we didn't have executive orders forever. I think we started calling them executive orders back in the 50s, I believe. I could be wrong with that, 50s or 60s. George Washington, the first executive order, we didn't call it an executive order, but with the equivalent. Constitution, the president is supposed to give a State of the Union address. So his first executive order was to tell the heads of the departments, various departments, give me a report so that I can give a State of the Union, Congress. That's part of the president's job, is to oversee the government. It's the executive branch. He executes the law. And what does that mean? That just means he sees that it's carried out. And to do that, he has to have an idea of what's going on in the law or in the government. And so to do that, from time to time, he might actually have to audit it. So George Washington actually set the precedent for Donald Trump auditing the government. Argue against that if you want, but that's the way history goes. Well, we have unelected officials looking at all our records now. We always have. The IRS is not elected. The FBI is not elected. The CIA is not elected. Very few members of Congress are looking at your records. They may request it, but they're not the ones actually doing it. And they're not always the ones initiating it even. So we have always had people looking at our records, our personal information, who weren't elected. So that argument's just stupid. In fact, well, they've been checked. Well, okay, so the DOGE. Now, the DOGE has one person looking at our computer records, basically. So that's one more person than who has been doing it in the past. And the DOGE could potentially say, hey, we have more people than we need. Let's fire half of these people. So that's actually a bunch less people looking at our information now. So I will put up with one person looking at my records for 6 months to take 20 to 50 other people out from looking at it. It's safer that way. And anyone can go corrupt at any moment. So sure, the DOGE can go corrupt. The people who currently have access to my records can go corrupt. I'm not really any more or less safe with the DOGE doing it than I am currently. So, the DOGE, from what I can read, okay, first off, it's not a real department. That's part of, they're calling it the department to make this name work. And that's why I say I don't like making clever names just to have it sound like something. So I'm against the name, calling it a department. It's not really a department. They put it under, what is it, agency which has access to data. Basically its job is that way they could have access to the records they need. So it is actually part of a created office. And then they report to the Office of Management and Budget because they have the actual authority to do things. Because the DOGE itself can't do anything. It can only make suggestions. So they report to Office of Management and Budget. Office of Management and Budget does what they suggest. And that is the one questionable thing is the Office of Management and Budget just going to blindly do what they say? So we're giving them de facto approval, or de facto power, let's call it. Possibly. But at the same time, one thing that the DOGE has turned up is that the Treasury Department's just been rubber stamping any payment request. In fact, they had orders, if something looks fraudulent, don't report it. Just go ahead and rubber stamp it. It'll get caught later on down the road, maybe. Of course, if you're not reporting it, maybe it won't get caught later on down the road. We don't know. Um, because the DOGE at least is reporting findings to Office of Management and Budget. I can request, FOIA request. Office of Management and Budget, what all has the DOGE told you so far? So I can find out what suggestions they're making. I can't find out what payments were approved, which might have been considered fraudulent or looked fraudulent at the time that they were approved. There's no record of that. Does it begin to look like the DOGE is a necessary thing? I think it does. Okay, well, the DOGE locked us out of our offices. Possibly because you said you weren't going to cooperate with them. I don't know. That's more of a case-by-case basis thing. I will tell you one thing. I worked for a place which got government audits on a regular basis. They didn't always tell us when they were coming. Sometimes they did. When they did tell us they're coming, they expected us to clear our schedule. And so, oh, we can't do our normal job. Well, yeah, that happens when you get audited. And, you're supposed to help the auditors, stay out of their way as much as possible, and if you're lucky, you can maintain minimum amount of service to the people who require it. But primarily, you're helping the auditors more than anything else. That takes precedent. So anyone who argues, oh, we couldn't do our work because of the auditors, you're just convincing me that you've never been audited before. Because, like I said, I've been audited. I know how an audit works. Okay. Oh, so U.S. aid. United States, forget what it stands for. It's basically we're trying to make people's lives better by giving them money. That's tongue-in-cheek. That's not what it officially is, but it's sort of is. It's partially that. There's more to it than that. Everyone complains, oh, this is horrible. We're a horrible person now. We're cutting off funding. Or, most people never heard of U.S. aid until DOGE pointed out that it existed. So, the question of, is it a good thing or a bad thing? Just the very fact that they got people to realize that it exists is a good thing. Otherwise, it's just a hole we're pouring money down, which some of it might be good money, some of it might be bad money. We don't know. That's what DOGE is doing, is they're looking to see. And they aren't cutting the program entirely. They're just saying, does this need it or not? And sometimes the answer is no. So, one person, a friend of mine, posted about how there are now riots in Congo because the U.S. aid money's been frozen for 90 days. And that's our problem. Why? I mean, I like peace. I want peace in the world, etc., etc. But if we have to actually bribe you to behave, maybe you don't deserve the money. I mean, colonialism, at least they enforced the law. They enforced law and order. So stability came because law was provided and people were there to enforce it. This idea, we're going to buy stability for you just by giving you money, and you'll behave as long as we give you the money, but you'll start to riot as soon as we stop giving you the money. Because that's what it sounds like from the article that they posted. I'm sort of against that. And when I say sort of, I mean I'm very much against that. But, and then they got a list of all the things that U.S. aid money is going for, or a partial list at least, because, like I said, we're getting information. Are we just getting the information that the administration wants to have or not? Because everyone plays politics with these things. So, yes, we're going to cut off this funding because it's being wasted, and we're also cutting off this other funding which isn't being wasted, but we're just cutting it. That might be happening. But at the same time, the people reporting on it, the news media, etc., they're just saying, oh, they're cutting funding and things are going bad, and we're not going to explain why things are going bad. We're just going to, make this big conspiracy theory about how the money's being misspent, or how the money should be spent wasn't being misspent. So, like I said, I could make that argument either way. I don't 100% trust the DOGE because, yes, they could only be giving us the information that they want us to have to support themselves, but I don't 100% trust the media because they have a history of only giving us the information they want us to have. So, on that one, I've got to lean towards the DOGE just because so far they haven't lied to me that I know of. They might have. I don't know of it yet. So I will give them the benefit of the doubt until I actually catch them lying. The media, I gave them the benefit of the doubt years ago, and then I caught them lying. So I don't trust them 100%. Now, okay, so how is the DOGE run? And this is how it's been explained to me, or the best explanation, I should say. Basically, 4-person teams, or 1 4-person team. I'm not sure if they have multiple teams or not. Basically, you got a person with background in finance leading it, because that's part of it is to see how we can cut the budget. Person with computer expertise, because we have to be able to access databases and stuff like that, and trace where money's being spent. Lawyer, because we have to see what here is actually mandated. Because that's one thing. People are saying if they're going to mandate, or they're going to start cutting mandates, and all this, this is legal. There was a law passed. Why are they cutting this? And no, they're actually have a person with a background in law who is checking into what is actually mandated and can we cut this or not. Then they got a guy with background in HR, human resources. So yes, this is mandated, but do we really need 50 people to do a job that 30 people can do? So we can still make cuts even on mandated things just because inefficiency. We found a better way to do it where we don't need 50 people to do it. So I'm in favor of that too. Again, I've worked places where someone, so and so quit, and we aren't going to fill the position again. Well, that means the rest of us had to work harder. Yes, and it was the worst part about it was that when the guy who quit, when you're going over his portion, the stuff that you took over from him, he didn't do everything quite the way he should have. So we were actually better off without him, in my opinion. Not going to mention names here, but in the long run, we did better just because we started doing things the way they should have been done. Now, some of my co-workers might disagree with that, but like I said, I had no problem absorbing his work just because it was basically the same stuff I was doing with just a little more of it. So it was just a matter of scheduling, making sure that. And then once I got around to correcting the mistakes he made, it was actually easier than it looked, or easier than he made it look. Not out just to criticize the guy, but at the same time, he wasn't doing everything that he should have been doing. So we, having someone else look at the job was actually a good thing. And what else? I think that's about it. Like I said, so far, most of what we've seen has been politics. And most of the arguments have been politics. And, Trump's just trying to push his agenda, but, from what I've seen, the people who are criticizing Trump's agenda are just trying to push their agenda. So, it goes both ways on that one. Transparency, we had, 15 to 16 years ago, Barack Obama promised us transparency in government, and then the rest of his term was just as murky as government had always been. the DOGE is actually fulfilling that promise now. We're actually getting transparency in government. Um, Now, again, like I said, are they telling us everything they're finding, or are they just telling the stuff that supports their political agenda? It can go either way, but we're still getting more information than we got under the so-called transparency we were supposed to be getting. So we should be at least happy for that. When the Democrats take office, they can do their own audit and they can tell us their half of the story. They've got the exact same authority Trump did, which, like I said, comes from, yes, George Washington did this because he had to run the country. He had oversight of the government, and so he had to know what the government was actually doing. And so that is pretty much it. So the last thing, of course, the DOGE is only supposed to exist for 6 months. If it's still around in August, I will probably be one of the people questioning it. And I say probably because so far, people don't like to be people who have stuff to hide don't like to be audited. And people have been arguing against it and dragging their feet, so there is the possibility that they will have to extend it. And actually, I will predict they will have to extend it by at least 3 to 6 months, just because people are dragging their feet. Pull the Band-Aid off fast, it doesn't hurt as much. So stop dragging your feet and the DOGE will be gone in 6 months as it should have been. But, like I said, other than that though, if people actually start cooperating and the DOGE is still around in August, then I will start to question, okay, this was only supposed to be here for 6 months, why is it still here? Other than that, like I said, there are legitimate reasons for them to extend it if people keep not cooperating. And as I said, this is people who have nothing to hide. Or it's people who have stuff to hide, I should say. Yes, the one last thing I nearly forgot. And think this one through. You keep saying this is all about forming a tyranny. Tyrannies turn the government against the people. They say, don't look at what the government's doing, let us nose around in your business. The DOGE is nosing around in the government's business, and it's letting us know what they're doing. Tyrannies don't do that. So, no, currently I would say it is not a tyranny. It is not Trump trying to take over the world or the government or anything like that. It is a legitimate response. It's something we should have had going on for years. Supposedly we did, but again, we had people ignoring the people who were supposed to do audits in the past. That's it. That's my defense of the DOGE for now. They can go corrupt, yes. Any government can go corrupt. Any government official can go corrupt. That's always been a possibility. No matter who is in office, no matter who they put in charge of a department, corruption was always a possibility. Do we have proof that they've gone corrupt or that they're planning to go corrupt? No, we don't. Not yet. When that comes along, I'll criticize the DOGE. Until then, shut up and let them do their job. Have a nice day.